Hello, friends. I want to apologize for yesterday, not having stuff videotaped. I had taped it several times, trying to get it just right, and then when I tried to add some music video onto what I had taped, I was told that I was not allowed to do that, even though that's something I had done before. So we just had to scrap the video, but I trust that the videos that I did attach with the link on Facebook and on our website were encouraging to you. I'm going to detour again today from our normal Navigator's reading. I've been studying the book of Jonah this week. I'm trying to write a paper for school. And so I've been kind of consumed with the book of Jonah. And I wanted to just go over some things specifically today that kind of hit me. If you recall the story, most of the time we think about the fact that it's about Jonah getting swallowed by a fish, a great fish or a big fish, as the text says. However, the story is actually about God. In fact, the sovereignty of God is seen throughout this entire story, from the very first words all the way to the end. The sovereignty of God and His mercy is seen throughout this, and it's about Him is really what it's about. One of the things that kind of stuck with me today in particular is Jonah's comments in chapter 4. A couple of different times God asks him this question, and I'm paraphrasing here a bit within the chapter, but he says, "Why are you angry?" Jonah had refused to go to the city of Nineveh initially. We're not told why in chapter 1, but in chapter 4 verse 2 it tells us, it says, because he knew God would forgive them. He knew God was compassionate and merciful, and he didn't want God to forgive these people. And that, I think, prompts his anger a bit, that he knows God was going to do these things, and God did it, and so he's angry with God because he wished that the Ninevites, or the Assyrians, would have been wiped out. After all, they were natural enemies of Israel. But in that, chapter 2, he praises God for his mercy. As God sends the fish to rescue him, as he's swallowed by the sea, so to speak, and the fish rescues him and then puts him back on dry land once again. And he thanks God for providing that means of salvation for him. And yet here, as he goes to preach this message of salvation to these sinful people, and God does indeed save them, he becomes angry with God. So there's almost this double standard of, God, you can show mercy toward me, but I don't want you to show mercy towards these people. Some years ago in my childhood, I know I'm still young, as many would say, but I remember something my mother in particular had done that kind of speaks to this. We had a falling out with an individual in the church that we were attending due to some circumstances. I'm not going to get into those at this time. Needless to say, though, that my particular feelings and my family's feelings were not pleasant toward this individual because of the things that they had done against us as a family. And I remember one particular Sunday that the church that we were in at the time, we often closed with a brief chorus kind of hymn and held hands together as a church. And on that particular Sunday, I didn't want to hold this individual's hand as they sat next to me because of what had been done to our family. And yet my mother, as she talked to me later and as she herself interacted with the person, chose to show kindness and mercy and love. You know, and I wonder if we're at those points in our lives, if there's individuals that we withhold mercy and grace and love from. I understand the hurt that they've caused, perhaps, in your life. I understand that, some of those things may be painful, but who are we to make the decisions, to act as God and say, it's okay for me to get mercy, but not that individual? After all, as the book of Jonah points out, it's the sovereign Lord's decision upon whom he shows mercy, whom he shows grace and love. He's the one that created them. He's the one that possesses the means to show those things, and so it's his decision. We have been called to act in kind to him, not in withholding those things, but being quick to show them, as Jesus says, love your enemies, love your friends, love your neighbors. In fact, he says that's one of the hallmarks of the Christian faith, is that we will be known for our love for one another. Not our love for sin, but our love for one another and choosing to love people as God does. And so it was just a quick note today that as we interact with people, as we interact with those that have hurt us, yes, I understand the hurt, but at the same time, how can we respond in a manner that is appropriate and providing forgiveness, and at the same time showing grace and mercy toward them? It doesn't always mean that we trust them. And as we've often talked, when trust is destroyed, we start in negative territory once again. It's not necessarily that I trust that individual, but I'm willing that as God has to forgive them and to show them mercy and grace. After all, we have been shown so much by our Lord, by Jesus Christ, by God the Father. How can we withhold those things from another? Some challenging thoughts today, not necessarily easy ones, but I pray that it encourages and blesses you today. Until next time, God bless.